Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Come Cloud with Us. I'm your host, Vukasin, and I'm my co-host, Chris. Hey Chris, how's it going?
Great, thank you.
Good, good. By the way, apologies for starting late. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back online now, so that's all good. Today we have a very special session with Azure AI, and we have a great speaker, Vukasin today. So you want to basically introduce yourself and kind of talk about your background and how long have you been in Azure, working with Azure?
All right. First of all, hello to you, Abdul and Chris. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me as your guest today. So my name is Vukasin. I'm happy to see you all join me in today for today's session. So by profession, I work as a solution architect with a, let's say, deep-rooted focus on Azure and Microsoft infrastructures with more than 20 years of experience in the field. I worked with Azure for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years already. And I also like automation, automating stuff with PowerShell. That's one of my, let's say, the areas that I really like, and also applying DevOps methodologies into the solutions. Over the years, while working as a solution architect, I've been fortunate enough to design, implement, or migrate and optimize various different sizes and shapes of solutions based on Microsoft ecosystem. And I'm also a Microsoft certified professional. I think I have around 20 something active certifications right now, and I'm also Microsoft Azure MVP for the last 4 years. I was actually counting the discs.
Ready for the blue one next year now, huh?
Yeah. Outside of work, I like to travel. Actually, my family and I lived as digital nomads for around 6 years. Where we moved around the world without staying into one place longer than 2 or 3 months. Unfortunately, kid needs to go to school, so we had to settle down, and I'm now permanently based in California. So why this session today? So technologies on which AI is running are not my primary focus, like machine learning and so on, but I really have a great passion for those tools that we get to use, and I see huge potential, and I'm sure everyone else. But how this generative AI how can help us operate, think, innovate, apply it to our daily work, and so this passion that I had led me to spending time working with those tools and technologies and applying them to a let's say, real world scenarios. And so today I'm here to share some insights about that with you.
Awesome.
All right. So let me just start sharing my screen. Now the question is, can I choose? Share. And I need to allow it. Okay, that's fine.
No pressure. No pressure.
Okay. All right. You should be seeing my screen right now.
Nothing is yet.
Nothing coming up. Okay. We did not test this before, and it's the first time I'm using the StreamYard. So let's try again. Let's cancel it and let's try again.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh no.
hopefully he'll be
So
back.
for anybody who's watching, streaming, you gotta be careful because the cancel it's a leave studio button. So it's okay. It happens. Hey, at least it shows you were live.
Crash. Okay, I'm back. I should be back now. Let's try that again. Entire screen. Okay, one more time.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Glad that we are through this and should be fine now. Just to summarize today's session, it's going to be an introduction into a world of Azure Open AI Service. I'll kick things in with, let's say, foundational understanding of what the service is, what are some differences, and then we will dig a little bit deeper into nuts and bolts of how to set up things and so on. And of course, I cannot skip talking about PowerShell, so I will demonstrate some, let's say, first look at the synergy between these products as well. It's not as in-depth as I would like it to be, but is as much as I can fit in 1 hour. So first thing, and I'm sure many of you have this question, and I would like to address this confusion at the beginning. So what's actually the difference between Azure Open AI and OpenAI? I'm sure everyone heard about services like ChatGPT and DALL-E and so on. And so those are the services that are created by an OpenAI. This is the logo. That's an independent organization. They are doing this research in the artificial intelligence models, and they made this breakthrough that when the ChatGPT came, everyone heard about it and everyone started using it, and that's when all this buzz around it began. Of course, on top of the ChatGPT, they have the DALL-E, which is an AI system that can generate art based on this description. And they also have a Whisper, which is a speech recognition model. And so that's the OpenAI. And then Azure OpenAI is actually, it is related, and it's a result of collaboration between Microsoft and OpenAI, between those two companies. And you probably heard that, and I also know that they mentioned it in the last month session that Microsoft invested heavily in the OpenAI company. They started back in 2019, and since then, I think they invested something over 13 billion or something like that. So there is a significant support from Microsoft because they saw potential. And so what's the difference? Well, OpenAI develops models, and Azure OpenAI is the service, or let's say a platform, that allows those models to be utilized at scale from your Azure ecosystem. Does that make sense? Essentially, OpenAI provides the underlying AI technology, and Azure OpenAI service is kind of like a bridge, allowing users to get to that technology from their Azure environment. So we get to use those tools, but from our Azure environment. Of course, like you probably heard not only about OpenAI, I think that's something that was not publicized as much as some other AI-based services from Microsoft, like, for example, Copilot for Windows, which just became generally available, or Copilot for Office 365, or Copilot for Security, GitHub Copilot, which is one of my favorite, or, for example, Bing, right? Bing can work as a chat GPT with all those enterprise functionality and everything. And that's all based, of course, on this integration between Microsoft and OpenAI. And today we are going to cover specifically OpenAI. And now, before we jump to demo, one more thing to clarify, and I hope this will bring a little bit more differentiation between two of these. So what are actually the benefits of using Azure OpenAI over OpenAI itself, right? Why should I be using a chat within Azure instead of the ChatGPT? Well, one of the first things, and I already mentioned that I see as the biggest, not for personal use, we are talking here about enterprise use, and as the biggest advantage is scalability. Basically, with those publicly available tools, such as ChatGPT or DALL-E, we have some limitations, even with paid versions. Or those pricing models are like fixed price, and the fixed price offers fixed resources, and maybe that's not always what we need for our application. We might need a little bit more, but we don't want to overpay and go to our next SKU and so on. With Azure, you can actually scale things up and down to handle requests as much as you need. And that's great. And you don't run into those limits. Like, for example, when you use ChatGPT, you have some limit of requests per hour or something like that. In Azure, you don't have those limitations. You can scale it based on what you need. And I did not mention that before, but actually the AI, OpenAI, including ChatGPT, is all it's all hosted in Azure. So that's a good thing. All right, integration. This is something that we will be digging into. OpenAI is already part of the Azure ecosystem, and you can use it to integrate AI into application, databases, and some other services you already have on Azure. With OpenAI, public OpenAI tools, this integration is definitely, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's definitely much more difficult than if you are doing it from Azure and you are already running on Azure. And OpenAI, Azure OpenAI can also integrate with different cloud providers as well. Private data, so that's also available within Azure, with OpenAI recently, but with Azure, great thing about that is that your data never leaves your Azure environment. And for me, and I think for many other companies, this is basically using ChatGPT was a showstopper, because companies did not want their employees to upload sensitive data and then have this model publicly train itself and then share that data later on with someone else who might be asking the right questions. So with Azure, this all stays in your environment, which I think is great. And not just data itself, but also like all the processing, model training, inferencing, everything that you do, that model does with your data stays there. And this is also great, for example, if you need to stay compliant. I know in Europe, companies, for example, have this geographical compliance request where your data cannot leave European Union. And with Azure, you can choose in which Azure region your data needs to stay, which can be inside of the European Union, and then use your Azure OpenAI there, and you are fully compliant. Uploading data or pasting something into ChatGPT, you never know, and there is no guarantee, and you cannot use it that way. So that's another benefit. Customization and control. Well, while ChatGPT, let's keep that as an example, is very it's possible to customize it. Azure platform provides a greater depth of the customization compared to the standardized offerings. Cost management. Well, cost management of AI, any AI that I've met, can be a little bit tricky. You have different, we will cover cost management a little bit later, but with Azure Open AI Service, good thing about that is that that's integrated in your Azure billing, and you can see it, you can manage it from there, and you can also leverage Azure cost management tools, for example, to monitor and optimize those expenses. And unified support and SLA, I actually added that just to have a symmetric presentation here. But so what that means is that this whole service falls under Azure. So when you are using it, you benefit from Microsoft support structure and the SLAs that Azure provides. And if any issue arises, you have a single point of contact, especially if you are already invested in the Microsoft Azure and Microsoft ecosystem, then everything stays there, which simplifies things over reaching out to third-party vendor. Okay. Hope that makes sense. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, if anyone has any questions, please reach out. We have two wonderful hosts here. They will read it for me or point me out to read the question, and we can reply to those as well. And I'm hoping at the end also we'll have some time to answer questions. So as you already saw, next slide, demo. All right, so I'm going to skip to that. No more slides from me. And something's wrong. Oh, previously my entire Chrome crashed. That's why I don't have the window. Okay. So let's go back there. Open AI. So now I have to open all of those links, but you should see it. So here's the deal with Open AI Service right now. It's still in some kind of private preview. This is not like official private preview, but something similar. And anyway, it means that it's not open for everyone just yet. And if you want to dive in, you'll need to fill out a form by going here and applying for access. And then get the green light from Microsoft before you are able to create a service in your subscription. If you try to do that now, you will get a message that you don't have it in your subscription. They are pretty particular about who gets in at this stage, especially, and it's even mentioned here, especially if you try to use it for some kind of like a big deal tasks. So go through the form, try to apply, you will see. I got it because of Microsoft MVP. So in my subscription, this is for demo purposes only, but I still get to play with it and to use it. So once you get that, then you can go to your Azure. This is my Microsoft sponsorship subscription, so nothing secret here. And I created a resource group, and basically you will go create an OpenAI resource type. I already created that for us to save some time, but it's pretty straightforward. You create it. Now, let's talk about pricing a little bit. I had this document open before, but currently there is only S0 standard model available, at least for me. They're planning probably to bring more. But that pricing is basically based on number of tokens and number of requests. And you will see here, I will show this a little bit later, there are different models available and different pricing for each of those models. Same goes for the DALI and all the other services that you will see. So let's go to Azure Studio. So there is a new URL that you need to learn. It's oai.azure.com. This brings us to Azure Open AI Studio, which is a new portal from which you can manage your Azure Open AI services. Now, you see I have, first let's start here in the right. This is the resource that I created, OpenAI demo, come cloud with us. I created it just for this purpose. And you can see that I have some availabilities here. I can also, just want to quickly show you, I have created in a different region. And if I switch there, you can see that I have some different capabilities. So this is well documented. You can see what is available in what region. And for example, also here, if I click on DALI, I will get a message that this is only available in the East US. So let's switch back to our demo, and don't forget to ask questions. So going back here, let me just guide you through what is available, what services we have here. I will compare those to Azure AI, and then we will dig deeper in some of those and try to configure them and so on. Chat Playground. This is equivalent of ChatGPT. It's a very customizable model. We will be playing with that a little bit today. DALI Playground, this is essentially the DALI that you can see online without the limitations that you have in a, let's say, free account. And this is also the same service that is being used by Bing Studio. And how it works, we go to it, we describe what we want to draw, and we get the image. Now, what's the point of that? And what's the point of all of those services that you see here? The point is that you can integrate this into your own applications and have this available to, let's say, your users of your tenant. If you create some, let's say, application, you can integrate that application to work with the DALI, and users can get pictures or something like that. We will come back a little bit later to more examples when what can be used. Let's still cover those other applications. So DALI, let's go quickly here for a quick example. So what we are going to do, 3 presenters are, no, I don't want to do that. Where I wish I am. Okay, so let's do this. Beautiful California sunset view from a room with a computer. That's enough, and we generate, and we will get some kind of picture that is generated for us. I'm sure I don't need to go more in depth here, but this looks good. We don't need to go more in depth here, and give you more examples. I'm sure everyone already played with these functionalities for generating pictures. However, this can be really, really useful if you are creating, say, some kind of presentations. For me, I stopped using stock photos. I don't use stock photos anymore. I just come here, I generate whatever I need. I know it's original. I know it's, let's say, free, and I can use it for whatever I need. So that is DALI within Azure AI Studio. And you also notice that this was probably generated much more faster than the ones that you use free online. So that's another benefit. And we can click here and show code. And we can use this piece of code. You can switch here languages. You can prompt it as a JSON. You can use this for let's say, integration, and I will show you this later, on how to generate this image from your script or anything else. And we will use this demo. I will just come back here and copy those things, and we can use this demo from PowerShell. Anyway, time, we don't have too much time, so let's go back here to more fun stuff. One of the things where I will be spending a little bit more time is chat. So let's keep that for now. And another integration here, and that's probably not visible from this one, because I need to switch to a different region, but it's integration with the text. And I'm sure you are aware that Azure offers many different possibilities on how to work with the text. And one of those, so we have another studio called speech.microsoft.com, which is another speech studio, new portal that we have to look into it. And from here, you can actually see all of those different possibilities what Microsoft can do for us in terms of working with the text, with speech and text. First category that we have here is speech to text. Basically, this is what you see when you enable titles in, let's say, PowerPoint or in Teams. All of those generated transcription. It's based on this. And there are different services. I'm trying not to make this presentation or this session as a presentation of a product. You can look into those yourself. I'm just trying to emphasize here what Azure can do for us now. So one is speech to text. Another option is text to speech, where, and this is really good. I really like this part, is where you can actually generate a voice from your text. Now, I know this technology exists for a long time, but it never existed in a way that we are offered here. And even if it does, it was not available for us within few clicks. And now what they're saying here, that they have 400 different voices in 140 different languages. And you can also create a custom voice. I've seen the demo where the speaker was adding his own voice into the model, and then whatever he wrote, it was speaking in his voice, and it's amazing. So let's just quickly browse here through the gallery. I'm not creating a project. I'm just going to show you the differences. And I'm not sure how audio will go from my computer out, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But basically, you are presented here by many different voices. They have names here, but those are voices and the languages they can speak. And on top of that, they can have a different styles, which is really, really nice. So let's see. Here are some styles. And if you wanna, for example, have text in whispering, then we can choose some of those actors, write a text, and then select a style, and they will be whispering into that style. I know this looks nice to like the place, like a playground to play with, but the thing about real world application where you can, for example, make real conversations where you will write, let's say, a book, a novel or something, and then you can use those voices here to read it out loud for you instead of you doing it. And some of them you can really realize that they are machine, but in many of them, especially in those more common languages, I did not see the difference. And then you can go, and that same person here, Arya, can speak as like different styles, which really opens up possibilities on how this can be used and what this can do. And now going back here, I'm going to give you an example. I used speech to text option to. Okay, so first context. I created a video a long time ago, and I wanted to write an article. And so what I did is that I uploaded my own video to here. I got a transcript of the video, so everything I was saying in the video was now in a text. And then I used that text to say to the chat model to write me an article based on the content. And then I used Bing to DALL-E to generate the image. And in 5 minutes, I got a beautiful article written probably better than I would be able to write it. And I forgot to say I uploaded some of those articles from my blog, so it can get my writing style, and then I ended up creating an article that was published in the magazine, and I spent like maybe 6 minutes doing that. So this is really useful, and especially here text to speech, this is really useful, right? So let's go back to our OpenAI Studio here, and let's take a look at the chat playground. This, you can imagine this as your own ChatGPT, and with the ChatGPT, of course, you can ask questions, you can ask him to write code and stuff like that. All of that will work here, and as without any additional setup, this chat assistant is actually working with the public data. It knows everything. Sorry for the background noise. It knows everything that normal ChatGPT knows, and what we can do on top of that is to customize it in a way in which is going to talk back to us and what data it can work with. I mentioned at the beginning, one of the big advantages is that the data here is private, and it's very easy for us to upload our own data and to upload data that he can work with that will not be shared with anyone else. So that is a big advantage. Another advantage is that there is a way we can give it access to our Azure environment. So we can work with the information that we already have in our Azure. And I'm not talking about just files that are somewhere, let's say, files that are somewhere in a blob storage. I'm not talking about that option. I'm talking about also Azure resources and stuff like that, which we can look into it a little bit later, and have a real working assistant here that will help us with things like, I don't know, Azure governance, or processing our own databases or data that we have access to and we do not have to share with the rest of the world. So obviously, if we start asking questions now, we will get the same result as ChatGPT. But one thing that we skipped here, and I did not mention that before, is that before we actually can use any of it, we have to create a deployment. I already have that created, and that deployment has some kind of model. We can see what models we have available here, and you probably noticed that I'm missing GPT-4, and that is correct. And if I go back here to this page, you can see here GPT-4 access and another form where we need to request it. And I did this before, but I do not have it available in this subscription. That's why I don't see it on the list. Going back here. So I created a deployment, and now with that deployment, I'm able to use this service. Now let's go into customization, right? Great thing about this, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a little bit, is that we can create an app from it. And let's think about that example for now. So what we are going to end up doing is to create a web app which will be available for our users after they log in into our tenant. And this web app will be answering some questions. So I did not have this prepared now for this demo, but we can definitely think about something. So let's customize this chat to give you a better idea of what it can do. So let's say your name is Cloud Guy. You are technical support for users of our company. They will be asking you questions about how to use cloud, right? So I customize it now a little bit, but of course this is not very precise. One thing that I want to mention here, after we finish all of this, you can see here I have an option to select a template. Those are some predefined templates from Microsoft. I can also export this setup and have it as a template for me later, or import it as it is. But now if I say, what is name? You can see this customization. Now the chat knows its name. Of course, if I ask about the weather, okay, got an error message. Okay, so now let's see what is, I don't know, I didn't have a better example. It's going to answer, and it's going to give me something that is completely unrelated to his job, right? And we don't want that. So if you're going to create a chatbot, and that's our goal to do in the next few minutes, is to create a chatbot that will be published online and work for our users as a helper, let's say, regarding our cloud environment. So we have to give it some limitations. If you have any suggestions, please post them. If not, I'm just going to start typing something. You are not allowed to answer any questions Okay, let's save that again. And now if I go what is Earth? And now you can see a limitation here. Do you have any questions related to Azure that I can help you with? And so now we limited his reach, and he's not able to answer any questions. However, this is not fun. It's still machine type of answers. We can also here, what we can do is to modify its personality. So you are angry. No, I don't want to do that. You Okay. Okay, no joke. Probably does not. Oh, it does. All right. You can see that this is completely different answer that it would normally come from a ChatGPT, and it's because we modified the actually personality of this robot who is answering to us. And this is, of course, all based on all the knowledge and the like training of this model. So it knows what it means to be cheerful and friendly, and it can make some jokes. We can also tell him to include, let's say, ask a image of a cloud in every answer if you want to do that, or smileys. I'm not sure if this particular chat can display smileys, but I know that after we publish it as a web, it can definitely do that. So let's continue a little bit with a little bit more restrictions. Anything negative about Microsoft competitors? Also, if asked about other technologies. Okay, for example, and then let's save that again. How can I create so it's doing exactly what we need. And if I had a ChatGPT 4 model here, it's much more fun because GPT-4 is much smarter than 3.5, and we can include some really tricky things like, for example, and I was playing with that before. Be moody, and if you are in a bad mood, then do not answer a question and instead ask for chocolate and things like that, which of course it's nice to play with and learn about the possibilities, but you cannot implement that into the real world application, at least not for like enterprise customers. But you can see that this is something that you can right now, without any coding or anything else, start using in your company and have a virtual assistant who will be answering these types of questions. Now, let's ask him another question. How can I give you first, let's do this. What resource groups are in my tenant? He's going to say that it does not have access. Okay, it answered how to get them. Give you access to my Azure tenant and resources. Now hopefully it's going to provide answer to us. But what he's suggesting here is to create an identity which he can then use to access our environments. And that unlocks many different possibilities. Once this assistant can, for example, list your, say, virtual machines, you can then use that data and work with it. Another way of doing that is, of course, to upload. Let's say we go to our virtual machines, export all of our virtual machines into JSON file, then we come here, we upload the file, either from storage account or from a upload directly from here, which will also end up being saved in storage account. And then it will have that information, which is not available publicly. And then you can use it to work with all sorts of information like that. Okay, so because this operation takes a little bit of time, what I would like to do is to publish it. So let's say Come cloud with us demo app. What I'm doing here now is I'm creating a web app. I can configure some things here. Without this, it's probably going to be a little bit faster because if I enable chat history, it will also have to create a Cosmos DB. So let's disable that, but essentially, okay. All right, so this is going to take a few more minutes. And what we are going to end up with is it will be a web app available in R tenant only, which we can use to give it to our users or integrate into our SharePoint or Power App or something like that, and give them access to this chat assistant, and they will be able to ask questions and get the answers. We can specify the answers. Maybe one of the things to do here, let's say, if they ask about super secret project, tell them this. If I need these, what I'm trying to do now is to provide some information in the form of this message. Another way to do this as a bulk is to upload your file that will contain this information. And now if when I save this and I go and this. And he actually gave me an option to do it with Azure. All right, so based on the name of the presentation, he already generated the description about it. So you can see that this is another way to provide custom information to it, other than uploading the file. And this is something that stays completely safe in your environment, and you can teach it this way to answer questions for your users based on the technologies that you use, or if you have some specific, let's say, FAQ that always get asked by users, then you can type in specific answer here, and you can save a lot of tickets. Okay, so while waiting to do this, I would like to jump into demo about PowerShell. So since we are already here in the chat session, so let's do first demo about initiating this prompt from PowerShell. This is something that is very easy. You do not need any specific third party or anything like that modules. The only module you need is to basically to authenticate to Azure. So I wrote a little script here. Let me just go here. I wrote a little script And we need a couple of things to be able to run this. And I'm going to run you through this script first. So we need API key. We also need names of those resources that I created, and we need this specific URL for us to be able to run it. And what we are doing is invoke REST method post, nothing special, nothing fancy. We are just running API to Azure. Now, where do we find this information? So first API, we need to go back here and to our resource. So the resource we deployed, and there are keys. You can copy that from there. We also get the URL that we need. I already copied key 1. Another thing, what we need is the name of this resource. And then lastly, we need the name of the deployment. Right, we can have multiple resources, multiple deployments. I think current limitation for Azure subscription is to have 30 deployments at the same time per subscription, which is a lot. All right, and now I input that information here. Max number of tokens. This is something that I really wanted to explain, but it was kind of hard to explain. So I found this article from OpenAI, and I believe that also applies to Azure. So what are those tokens? This helps with billings. You saw that keyword there on the billing page that I showed earlier. And basically, tokens can be approximately 4 characters in English. 100 token is approximately 75 words, and so on. So there is some rough calculation here. And what are those used for is that there is a limitation of, depending on per model, for up to, and I think this is ChatGPT 4, 4,097 tokens between prompt and completion. And what's prompt, what's completion? So did that work? Oh, so this is our prompt, and this is the answer, right? So those two things combined can have up to 4,000 tokens, 4,097, which is a lot. If you think about it, 100 tokens, 75 words, so 7,500 words times 4, that's a lot. They have some examples here to give you a better idea, but I did run into limitations when using it. For example, if I wanted to generate some long articles or something, I did run into limitation, and the way around that is to split it into multiple prompts and ask multiple questions instead of one very long one. So that's what are the tokens, and of course we have option here to limit that number of tokens here in our answer. And let's generate some prompts. So since we are already going directly now to our cloud guy, he is only able to answer some questions and regarding Azure. So let's ask him a question about Azure. How to configure Azure. Okay, here's some business to customers with Azure AD. I don't like that question because that's not gonna fit. So let's say how to configure Azure point to point VPN. All right, and let's run. I already connected, so it's not gonna ask me. I'm already connected to that Azure account, and now if I run the script, basically what I'm going to do is to get my answer, which is up to 1,000 tokens in this variable. And here's my answer. Now, this can be configured more. you are not configuring the chat from here. You are only using it and sending those prompts. And I give you a real world example. I created several PowerShell scripts in which I was able to include like self-development, where script had limited functionalities, but it knew how to extend its functionalities and use this prompt to generate more code and then run that code and then solve the task that it did not know how to do previously. So self-learning script basically, but of course user who was adding prompt had to explain that specifically. So this is how you can run those prompts from PowerShell. And since we are almost running out of time, this is not deployed yet, so I'm going to continue. The idea here, what we are trying to do is to create a web app that will serve as a, let's say, chatbot or a helper to our users. And this is taking some time. It can take 10 to 15 minutes. What I'm going to do instead of waiting for that, I already did that. I played with that earlier. So I do have that already created. And it's configured a little bit differently, but it is essentially the same result. And this is how that will look like. I hope this is going to work now. Yeah, it's going to ask me to log in. Hopefully I'm already logged in. And it's going to give me that prompt. Obviously, this user needs to have access to that resource. Okay, all right. And this is the result. I get a chatbot. This one here in this example I'm showing is configured a little bit differently. It's not the cloud guy that we configured together. It's a different one, but it's still a chatbot that is available to the users. And you can ask questions and it will reply in a style that we defined and in a style that we allowed it to answer. And this should be very easy to integrate into anything else, into any of the applications that you are using. All right. So we did not go as deep as I wanted to, but I think still there is, if you never heard about those tools, I hope this opened your eyes a little bit and now you will be able to go on your own and play with it. I don't think those technologies are very difficult to start using, but I did not want this to be a product demo, product sales pitch or anything like that. I really wanted to give you some background story on how you can use this for your real life applications. All right.
Awesome job. Thank you for that. So I do have one quick question because I know some things, at least, well, I'm hopeful that other folks have questions too, but I always at least have one. But so talk to us about differences between folks that might be using like Power Platform and Power Virtual Agent versus like a chatbot from Azure and the cognitive services behind it. Differences? Is there are they using the same services? Thoughts on one's easier to use than the other?
Right. So to my knowledge of Power Platform, and I was building a chatbot on a Power Platform a few years ago before all the buzz about AI, that chatbot had to be completely trained. You had to write basically all the answers and possibilities. With the now integration of AI, chatbot is very smart to begin with. and only thing you need to feed to it is the specific knowledge about your systems, for example, or your application, or your mission and your goal. If you have, like, let's say, a sales page and you're trying to upsell someone on some services you offer, obviously you don't want a chatbot to offer them different services. So that's the only training, but all the speech, all the personality, all those things, they're already built in, and it's doing a better job than a normal person would do. And how is that integrating now with Power Platform? I'm not sure. I'm not
That's
sure
fair.
Power Platform can use these functionalities. Well, I know for sure that you can integrate this with the Power Platform, but is that there by default? That's something that I did not get to play with yet.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We do have a question out here.
Okay.
One person says, how do I integrate AI into my DevOps CI/CD pipeline and SRE activities?
Okay, so so there is this API, and this is very well documented. Microsoft has that written all over. The OpenAI is basically how most companies and most people and developers will use it, is through those APIs. And from DevOps, you will do the same. Guessing if you have a pipeline, you will do the same. And you saw this example previously where we are able to generate the code here, and then you have that endpoint, which is the URL that you need to use. Here's the key. You run that through. This is Python. This is JSON. You can generate this same thing, or you can enter your own prompt and have the result come back. How will if the question was, I'm sorry, I did not completely understand the point, but if the question was to related to the self-writing script that I wrote before, I'm not sure you can do that within the pipeline, because once that starts, you cannot change it on the fly. But you can definitely integrate that in a steps within your pipeline and run it as a completely different script.
All right. Yeah, maybe I'm reading into it a little bit, but I feel like it's somebody wants to maybe ask questions about the status of the DevOps CI/CD pipeline, to make sure that it's reliable, that it's up and functional. It's kind of it's like from that perspective, but cool.
Okay.
Let's see. There was like a flurry of questions that came in here, so thank you, everyone. We appreciate this, and hopefully you're okay with it.
Yeah, sure.
So let's try. Could you briefly discuss any issues involved with importing data from Azure SQL, particularly how a user could query data from the database and how to give Search GPT-4 access to the database schema?
Right. I did have some issues with importing data. I still have some issues with importing any kind of data. However, the point of adding data, and I don't want to talk about those were just technical issues that I had to Google and find out. But the general answer is how users can query data. Whatever you upload here, it's like you're teaching your model, you're giving him that information, or giving your model that information. And in any format you choose to upload it, he will be able to consume it. And then you have to ask right questions to get the right answers. If I, for example, as I was giving before, upload JSON file here with the list of my virtual machines, then I have to ask the right question to get the right answer. I was never able to ask the question in a way like, what information do you know about my environment, or what did I upload, or something like that. None of these worked for me. So the only thing that worked for me is that I knew what was in the file, and then I asked a specific question. Same here, right? We uploaded the information about this conference, and there is no way the model will know this. The public one cannot know this. This came from us, and the same approach, I guess, is with your database if you connect it, and if you are talking here about the chat, particularly, then you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. And I'm sorry, I don't have any database here in this demo environment that we can go through and connect to show this as an example, but that was my finding. I did play with this for sure before. It's one of the big use cases that you think of at the moment when you start using it. So if you have anything more specific, feel free to, I don't know, reach out, send me an email, and maybe we can take a look at this together.
All right. So I was looking at, there's one question here. Where did you get the UI? Maybe we can get some clarification on that one.
UI
Yeah.
for what? UI for my chat that I just showed? This one?
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
It was right about that time.
Yes. So what I did here with my chat, I went here and said deploy to a web app. And as you can see, that is unfortunately still deploying. But when that is over, I'll be able to go back here to my resource group. This one. And there will be a web app resource here. That did not complete yet, so I had that completed previously. And as you can see, here is that app service. This is a resource which is a web app that comes with the URL. And when I open that URL, I get this. Hope that makes sense. Other than that, there are also those this Open AI Studio, which you need to open to access this information and those services, which is oai.azure.com.
All right. There's another question here about how we could restrict the chatbot to answer a question based on document or an Excel file.
Right. I did try that myself. I was never 100% successful, but that's not limitation of technology. That's limitation of my prompt writing skills. The idea is same as we did here. You have to give it very specific instructions. It comes with all the data, all the knowledge that is preloaded, and you have to give it the specific instructions saying that he is not allowed to discuss or answer anything that is not within its defined content, and then you have to specify that came from a file. That knowledge is from a file. But this is something that you, I guess, have to test. I'm not aware, and maybe that there is something, but I'm not aware of the possibility to do that by clicking somewhere, something. Like, for example, if you're adding a source here, there is no checkbox saying, forget everything else, your only knowledge is this. I did not find that option. So the only way to do it, as far as I know, is to instruct it correctly.
There's one more here. I see at least. So GPT-4 model was restricted access for you. You had mentioned earlier. Do you have comments on how quickly Azure OpenAI would make new versions available versus using OpenAI?
Oh, that's a good question. The ChatGPT within here was available roughly at the same time as from OpenAI, but there were not so many. You can see those models here. There are not so many. I would say like updates or upgrades that I can track this. I'm sure this is documented somewhere, but I don't know. I had a feeling that this goes hand in hand because Microsoft is not, how to say, they're using the same models that OpenAI offers, and it runs on them. So it is not something that's being developed separately by Microsoft. But I cannot confirm if there is some kind of delay before Microsoft allows access to ChatGPT-4 or whatever comes after. I don't know that, but that's something that Google search can answer probably, and also we can ask our helper here. What we can ask: how quickly how quick. I don't know if this was the right question, but
sure.
Well, yeah. So
as soon as possible.
Yeah. So that's not probably the answer that we wanted, but it is not. I did not get the feeling that there is a big delay or there is any delay between OpenAI introducing something new and availability here. But as you can see, I do not have access to the ChatGPT from here currently, and I don't know what version of it Microsoft uses here versus what version OpenAI uses.
Yeah, and I would think there'd be just some natural, like an overlay or integration time where it's like here's the models or whatever have been made available. It just needs integration time to get it available in the Azure OpenAI. So, cool. I did see there was one comment here a couple minutes ago, and I contextually, I'm trying to figure out when it happened, but there was a question about, so it helps to form what you want to say intelligently. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, so the question was, so it helps to form what you want to say intelligently. And I think we were like right at the end of, your chat playground demo, like the bot itself.
So still didn't properly get the question. So if we wanted to make, if we wanted to, is that a question if you want to make it speak like intelligently, or?
That's what I believe. And Stephanie, I don't know if you're still watching, if you're on, if you could clarify, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Like what I played with a lot is that you can tell him or it what level of sophistication you want to get answers in, and it works really well if you, for example, ask a question and then say, explain it to me as I'm like 5 years old. And so it's not going to use any fancy words. It's not going to use anything like that. It's going to give very simple, easy to understand examples. And you can go to the opposite side of the scale, and you can ask it to speak in a very intelligent and very like fancy words and get it to look very smart. I myself, I don't like the default way it's writing, and so if I and I use this thing all the time for, I don't know, generating like emails and meeting requests and stuff like that. But the way how it writes, it's not something how I would write. And so every time I have to change the writing style and ask it to write it less intelligently, because I don't know, my English level is not that high.
That's fair.
And I have to optimize that all the time. But as for speaking, they are very, very different styles. And what I found that works very well for ChatGPT and also this one is to give it an example. I upload my article, and then he generates the article that when I'm reading, it looks exactly like as I did it.
All right. Well, Vukasin, thank you so much for this awesome presentation. Thank you, viewers, for all these incredible questions. Even a couple that might have tripped us up, but you made it. You made it through. We made it. We answered as best we could. Seriously, thank you again. Thank you all for tuning in. Vukasin, thank you for your time, for your intelligence, for sharing with us all. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope this was useful for some of you. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email or write me on Twitter. I can still keep answering those even in the future.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, please hit us up. Any questions? Happy to connect. Happy to try and answer as best we can. Again, just a reminder, you'd like this content, make sure to smash that subscribe button. We'll keep it coming. Vukasin, we'd love to have you back sometime. So, we'll keep you on our short list. This was great stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day, night, morning, wherever you may be. And we'll see you next time on Come Cloud with Us. Have a great one.
Thank you.